Coming up on today's Cowboys Report, we've got a Cowboys roster move we'll break down once it happens. The Brian Robinson trade rumors are here and real around the NFL and should be real for the Cowboys too. Potential Kyle Duggar addition/trade. He seems to be on the outs in New England. And some have suggested cutting Mazi Smith. I'll break that down in today's show. Of note, this is the third on-demand video we have done today. We had the morning video, the breaking news signing video, then the live show. So this video should not be getting a push notification on YouTube. So help us out. Share today's video. Let your friends know a new Cowboys Report is out because there's some good stuff in today's show. Let's go to Brian Robinson. The Commanders are reportedly shopping him as a trade candidate. There's been some buzz out of Commanders land that he was actually a potential cut candidate, a surprise cut candidate for the Commanders. But it does sound like there is a real possibility that the Commanders will move on from Robinson. In fact, he is not playing in tonight's preseason game by mutual decision, which means he gone. Jordan Schultz had this one Sunday night saying the Commanders have been shopping him to teams around the NFL. And then he also followed up with, they still like him, at the right price, which, okay, the cat's out of the bag there. Once you're shopping him around other teams, this race is over here. Others seem to have passed Robinson at this point. Obviously, Austin Eckler is a huge part of that run game. The Commanders seem to think they have found something with Corey Krosky-Merritt as I think it was a seventh rounder, a small school guy for the Commanders. Chris Rodriguez had started to get some more playing time for the Commanders last year. They have Jeremy McNichols. They could maybe go find another third running back, or Felton and Allen, McNichols, whatever, could also contribute on special teams. Brian Robinson does seem to be available in Washington. And I fully buy that he is available. There had been, my guy, Jack Sperry, for our Commanders Report channel here at Chat Sports, had mentioned that is on a video. I am inclined to think that he is on his way out now. So once we get to this point where we kind of all know that, any trade is probably going to be pretty cheap. And we'll break down some of the pros and cons here on, I guess maybe more of the pros, on a potential Brian Robinson trade. But I think this is one the Cowboys should consider. I look at what this team has in the backfield and go, I don't think Robinson is an elite player anymore, but he can help you. I think that is something you should be considering. So, would you trade for Brian Robinson? We'll make this the pinned comment on today's video. Y for yes, N for no. Go vote at that pinned comment. Would you trade for Brian Robinson? Y for yes, N for no. Given the Cowboys' really lack of proven ability in the backfield, in that running back room, I would strongly consider a Brian Robinson trade. He seems to have fallen out of favor with the Commanders and that offense. I think he actually fits what Schottenheimer and company want to do decently in the Cowboys' run game. And most importantly, he has been better recently than this other group of second, third, fourth chance running backs the Cowboys have minus the draft picks. I think you can make a fantastic argument he'd be RB1 on this team, and he would be better than Javonte Williams and Sanders, and would be a good pairing with Jaden Blue short term. I don't think he'd be very expensive either. The trade cost is a day 3 pick at best, somewhere in that range. That's what history tells us for this caliber of player in the backfield. The contract cost is $3.41 million. That's not that much. That's a rounding error in the end for the Cowboys. So yeah, I would have interest in Brian Robinson. I think he helps you. The production is not elite, but it has gotten better from an efficiency standpoint each season. It didn't have as many yards in 2023, but he ended up having fewer carries. It was fine. He's probably never going to be a 250 carry workhorse back, but if I can get 180-ish carries out of Brian Robinson at 4.2 yards per carry, that's better than what Javonte Williams has done recently. That's better than what Miles Sanders has done recently. I think that's better than what Phil Maffa would give you right now. So yeah, I absolutely would have interest here if I were the Dallas Cowboys. We'll see if they do. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. It is the best way to get action on sports in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. One thing to always keep an eye out for Prize Picks are some of their discounts. For example, Dak Prescott has a max discount right now at a half passing yard in week 1 of the regular season. Put that in all of your Prize Picks lineups. It's kind of silly to not put it in there. So you compare with, like, how about Xavier Worthy getting a single jet sweep carry, more than 3.5 yards on the ground. And then maybe you want to be a little bit aggressive. How about Ashton Genty, rushing or receiving touchdown in the preseason game coming up here? That's in week 1. My bad. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. We appreciate them sponsoring us here on the Cowboys Report. Let's move to a potential Kyle Dugger trade. There have been some media reports last week or so indicating that he is kind of on the roster bubble. He has fallen down the depth chart. He got work with the second team and then was kind of on the scout team a little bit. And he played all the way through the end of the fourth quarter in the second preseason game for the Patriots. He was way down there at that point. And he made the interception, but that was, not all that you really wanted to have. You wanted to have a little bit more on that front out of Kyle Dugger. The fact that he was playing deep into the game is a significant red flag for him. I talked to our Patriots guy, Brett Alper. He's like, yeah, he's been bad, essentially. The Dugger we saw in 2024 wasn't as good, wasn't as impactful as the guy we saw earlier in his career. There is an entirely new regime, essentially, in charge in New England. There is money issues we'll get to here in just a second, but this is certainly someone to monitor as not just a trade candidate, but maybe a cut candidate as well. This is the Kyle Dugger contract. He's owed $15.26 million against the cap this year, $10.75 million in cash owed. The Patriots would save next to nothing with the cuts. They'd be able to push some of the money off into the future. It's only $1 million. Trade would save 10.76. So essentially the same as the cash show. There's a little bit of difference there. Of note, $2.75 million of his 2026 salary is guaranteed for injury. So you'll be paying him a lot of money if you traded for him. That's probably your biggest issue here. Is he better than Donovan Wilson? Or is that kind of like half a dozen of one, 6 of the other, as it relates to your safety room the Dallas Cowboys have right now? How does Donovan Wilson fit in? You're probably comparing those two guys in terms of your depth chart. I hope that it's okay that Wilson ends up being fine, Hooker ends up being fine. I think the money is the single biggest issue for a potential Kyle Dugger trade, interest, whatever. I question if the Cowboys would be willing to take on that amount of money. Now, if he's cut, different conversation. So would you consider a Kyle Dugger trade? T for trade, P for pass. Let me know in the comment section of today's show. Would you consider a Kyle Dugger trade? Get those votes in. T for yeah, you trade for him. P for no, you'd prefer to pass. Let me know in the comments of today's show. Let's go to Mazi Smith here. Sports Illustrated projected the Cowboys would cut Mazi Smith on their roster projection. Now, I know a lot of you guys are unhappy with Mazi and the impact he's had from the first-round pick, and that's fair. That is valid. I understand all of that as it relates to Mazi Smith. But there are massive issues with cutting him. There are significant issues. You can't really quite move on from that right now. There are problems. I get the frustration on the play. It hasn't been good enough. Mazi himself has admitted that. It's not where it needs to be on the field. I think at best right now, you're kind of getting rotational play out of Mazi Smith, which, okay, that's fine, but not for what you wanted for a first-round pick, right? He's too slow off the snap, and I still wonder if that's ever going to end up changing in the end. More on this to come. We'll go in depth on like why you kind of actually can't cut Mazi Smith right now. But what is your confidence level in the Cowboys defensive tackle room? 1 to 10 is your scale. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. Let me know in the comments of today's show. Let's talk the defensive tackle depth chart. The single biggest reason, or one of the two biggest, why you can't cut Mazi Smith is who the hell else are you going to play? You're going to ride with, like, I'm not out on Jay Toia long term, but he hasn't actually been better than Mazi Smith so far in the preseason. He has to do more than that. That's your only other big guy. Akinbasote's been a non-factor. Winfrey's been kind of disruptive at times. He's flashed, but he's like maybe 300 pounds. I need my nose guard. I need 2 of them right now, and that includes Mazi. I can't get rid of him. He is still one of my 4 best defensive tackles. The bar's low, but he does clear that part. The other element is this. I actually don't save any money. Like, in fact, it's actually a financial disincentive to cut Mazi Smith right now. You cut him, of the $3.62 million cap hit he's facing, you'd actually lose an additional $2.5 million. Now, if you could find a trade partner, sure. Comes back to point 1 of, like, who are my other defense tackles in there? Like, is Linval Joseph better? Maybe that's one spot, but, like, I don't think I can find 2 guys right now that are actually run stoppers and are healthy. Sorry, Christian Wilkins. So I'm not buying the Mazi Smith angle of him being cut. I would be pretty damn shocked. Now, for more Cowboys news, rumors, updates, everything else in between, hit that sub button so you don't miss out. YouTube.com/@CowboysTV. We do have the corresponding roster move for the Cowboys that was made to make room for Michael Ojemudia. Bruce Harmon, the undrafted free agent out of Stephen F. Austin, has been released by the Cowboys. He's actually been waived injured, which means if and when he clears waivers, he will then revert to injured reserve. The Cowboys, as they've done several times, will almost assuredly reach an injury settlement, save them some money over the course of the season. But Harmon got banged up in the second preseason game. Cowboys needed more corners, so they end up injuring him instead.